Jeffrey Epstein's name is now shorthand for a scandal that exposed the dark intersection of wealth, power, and exploitation. He was a shadowy figure in elite circles, amassing a fortune and influence that defied explanation. The mystery of his rise, how a college dropout became a jet-setting financier, fueled public fascination and suspicion. But beneath the facade of philanthropy and intellect, Epstein's world was built on secrets, manipulation, and the suffering of the vulnerable. His story is not just about one man, but about the systems that enabled him, and the urgent questions they raise about justice and accountability. Epstein's power was no accident. It was engineered through leverage and secrets. He gained access to the ultra-wealthy by managing their finances, making himself indispensable and privy to their most sensitive information. His lavish properties weren't just homes. They were traps, designed to compromise powerful guests and collect blackmail material. Epstein's influence extended to scientists and academics, laundering his reputation through philanthropy and association with prestigious institutions. He built a network where nearly everyone owed him, a web of favors, secrets, and threats. This architecture of control allowed him to operate with impunity, shielded by the collective power of those he compromised. Epstein wasn't just a friend to the powerful. He was their gatekeeper, and at times, their greatest threat. His true currency was leverage, not money. Epstein's carefully constructed world began to unravel in 2005, when a concerned parent reported his abuse of her 14-year-old daughter to the authorities. This single act triggered a major investigation that would soon reveal the dark underbelly of Epstein's life, exposing secrets he had kept hidden for years. As the investigation deepened, dozens of victims bravely came forward, sharing harrowing stories that revealed a disturbing pattern of trafficking and abuse. These accounts implicated not only Epstein, but also, allegedly, a network of his powerful associates, men whose names carried weight in the highest circles of society. Despite overwhelming evidence and mounting public pressure, Epstein received a shockingly lenient plea deal in 2008. He served just 13 months in a county jail, with generous work release privileges that allowed him to leave for hours each day, an arrangement almost unheard of for such serious crimes. Even after his conviction, Epstein's connections to presidents, royalty, and business titans remained largely intact. These relationships raised troubling questions about who might have protected him and why so many doors stayed open to him, despite his criminal record. In 2019, after years of speculation and renewed investigations, Epstein was arrested again on federal charges. But before he could stand trial and testify, he died in jail under mysterious circumstances, fueling a storm of conspiracy theories and public outrage. His sudden death didn't end the story. Instead, it intensified the demand for answers. Victims, activists, and the public called for transparency, accountability, and justice for all those involved. Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate and confidant, was later convicted for her role in his crimes. Yet despite her conviction, the full extent of the network that enabled Epstein's abuse remained shrouded in secrecy. The scandal exposed not just individual depravity, but also the protective bubble of wealth, privilege, and influence that shielded Epstein and his associates for so long, leaving the world to wonder how many secrets still remain hidden. The Epstein Files refer to a vast trove of evidence: flight logs, black books, financial records, interviews, and more, collected by law enforcement. These files are believed to hold the key to identifying Epstein's co-conspirators and exposing the broader network that enabled his crimes. For victims, the files represent a chance for real accountability. For the public, they promise answers about institutional failures and systemic corruption. The files are more than evidence. They're a potential reckoning for the powerful and the institutions that protected them. Public demand for the Epstein Files exploded after his suspicious death, uniting people across political lines and igniting a wave of outrage. The sense that powerful secrets were being hidden brought together people from all walks of life, who saw the files as a key to understanding the full scope of the scandal. Social media campaigns and relentless advocacy kept the pressure on, making the files a symbol of hidden corruption. Hashtags trended worldwide, and online petitions gathered hundreds of thousands of signatures as people demanded answers and accountability from those in power. Politicians from both parties seized on the issue, some seeking justice, others hoping to expose rivals. Congressional hearings and press conferences became battlegrounds for competing narratives, as lawmakers argued over the need for transparency and the risks of political fallout. Survivors of Epstein's abuse became the most powerful voices, insisting that true justice required full transparency and the exposure of every participant in his network. Their courage in coming forward inspired others to speak out, and their stories made it impossible for the public to look away. The bipartisan push created rare momentum in Washington, making the release of the files a national issue. Lawmakers who rarely agreed on anything found common ground, driven by mounting public pressure and the moral urgency of the moment. For many, the files represented more than names. They were about exposing a two-tiered justice system. The fight for release became a rallying cry for those who believed that justice should not be reserved for the powerful and well-connected. The survivors' advocacy gave the movement its moral force, reminding the world that real lives were at stake. Their determination kept the issue in the headlines and inspired a new generation of activists to demand change. The demand for the files became a demand for justice itself, a call to confront uncomfortable truths and ensure that no one, no matter how influential, is above the law. The road to releasing the Epstein Files was marked by broken promises and political gamesmanship. The new administration promised transparency, but initial document releases were empty gestures, fueling public frustration. When the DOJ reversed course and refused further releases, Congress responded with rare unity, passing the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Even then, the files released were heavily redacted, and agencies dragged their feet, forcing advocates to keep up the pressure. The process revealed how deeply institutions resist exposing the powerful, but also how persistent public and political pressure can force change. The fight for the files became a test of democracy's ability to hold the elite accountable. Each step forward was hard-won, and the struggle for full disclosure continued. The partial victories proved that transparency is possible, but never easy. In January 2026, the Department of Justice released a staggering 3.5 million pages of Epstein-related documents, a seismic event that sent shockwaves through the public and media. Yet this was only a partial disclosure, leaving many to wonder what remains hidden behind closed doors. The files revealed shocking new details, allegations that Jeffrey Epstein operated as an intelligence asset for both the US and Israel. According to the documents, his vast network was used for blackmail, compromise, and possibly to manipulate powerful individuals. These revelations painted a far more complex and sinister picture than previously imagined. Eyewitness accounts described violence and depravity that went far beyond what was previously known, deepening the horror and raising new concerns about the extent of the abuse. Testimonies included chilling details that had never before been made public. The documents also included claims of foreign influence at the highest levels of U.S. government, implicating prominent figures and suggesting state-level protection. The files hinted at a web of international connections, with foreign operatives and diplomats allegedly involved. While some of the most explosive allegations came from a single confidential source, their presence in official files gave them unexpected weight and fueled heated debate among lawmakers, journalists, and the public. The release was not a simple list of names, but a disturbing mosaic of interviews, emails, and memos, each piece adding to a puzzle that is still far from complete. Investigators and journalists now face the daunting task of piecing together the full story. The files reframed the scandal, not just as a criminal enterprise but as a potential intelligence operation with global implications, raising the stakes for everyone involved. The revelations raised more questions than they answered, intensifying the demand for the full truth and leaving the world waiting for the next chapter in this unfolding saga. The document release triggered outrage and heartbreak among survivors who felt exposed while many abusers remained hidden behind redactions. Lawmakers condemned the partial release as a violation of the law, vowing to pursue further action against officials who withheld files. The timing of the release, coinciding with a major arms deal to Israel, fueled suspicions of political maneuvering and cover-up. Administration officials defended their actions, but faced contradictions between their statements and the contents of the files. The public's distrust deepened as the release seemed to protect the powerful more than it delivered justice. Survivors and advocates renewed their calls for full transparency, refusing to let the story end with half-truths. The fight for the remaining files became a battle for the soul of accountability. Even after the massive document dump, half the Epstein files remain sealed, potentially holding the most explosive secrets. The public's demand for the full truth is about more than curiosity. It's about justice, reform, and national security. The files implicate not just individuals, but entire systems, law enforcement, finance, media, and politics that failed to protect the vulnerable. Allegations of intelligence ties and high-level compromise raise the stakes, suggesting the scandal may be about more than personal depravity. The quest for the complete files is a quest for accountability, for victims, for the public, and for the integrity of our institutions. Until every page is released, the shadow of Epstein's crimes, and the systems that enabled them, will continue to haunt us. The truth remains just out of reach, but the fight to uncover it is far from over.